I sit parked across the street from the house I used to call home. It's quiet in the car, except for the ticking of the turn signal I forgot to switch off. I watch through the windshield as my two kids, Ben and Emma, burst out of the front door, barefoot, laughing, sprinting toward a man in the driveway. Their father. My ex-husband. Daniel. They throw their arms around him like he's the safest place in the world. And maybe, he is. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when they used to run to me like that. When I was the center of their world. When they used to cry if I left the room. Now, they barely look at me when I pick them up. I used to think that was his fault. I told the man I once loved that he was a failure. As a husband. As a father. And for a long time, I believed it. I clung to those words like a shield, like they justified everything I felt. The anger. The loneliness. The decision to end our marriage. I truly believed I was the victim, until I realized I was the one who broke us. Not in a single moment. Not with a single fight. But with 1,000 tiny choices. The way I stopped listening. The way I judged his silence. The way I twisted my pain into words meant to wound. And God, they did. Everyone warned me. My mother. My sister. Even my best friend, Liz, pulled me aside once and said, "You don't look at him with love anymore, you look at him like he owes you something." I brushed it off. Because I was tired. Because I thought he'd stop trying. Because I thought I deserved more. What I didn't know, what I refused to see, was what he was going through when I finally snapped and said it. That one night. Those words. I don't respect you anymore. You're a failure. As a husband. As a father. I watched the light leave his eyes. And I told myself I didn't care. But sitting here now, 5 years later, watching him smile, really smile, as he lifts Emma onto his shoulders while Ben tugs at his sleeve, something inside me crumbles. I wanted to win. I wanted to prove something. But the truth is, I lost more than I ever imagined. And if I had just asked him one question, just one, before I shattered him with those words, maybe everything would be different now. Maybe I wouldn't be watching my life from behind a windshield. 5 years ago, our home didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a place where two people coexisted. Where shoes piled by the door, laundry sat unfolded on the couch, and conversations were reduced to reminders about dentist appointments and grocery lists. Daniel would come home, drop his keys on the counter, mumble a "hey," and disappear into the bedroom without even taking off his shoes. Some nights he'd fall asleep with the TV still on. Other nights he'd just stare at the ceiling in the dark, saying nothing. We'd been married 14 years. 2 kids. A mortgage. A routine. From the outside, we looked stable. Functional. Like we had it all together. But behind closed doors, there was a silence so thick it felt like a third person in the room. I'd try to talk to him, about the kids, about how I was feeling, but he'd just nod or grunt or say, "We'll figure it out," and that would be the end of it. I started to feel like wallpaper, present but invisible. I could scream, and it wouldn't even register. He forgot our anniversary that year. Didn't even flinch when I set down a plate of takeout instead of the dinner I used to make from scratch. He didn't notice when I stopped wearing makeup. Or when I started sleeping on the far edge of the bed. I told myself I was being dramatic. That this was just what long-term marriage looked like. But something inside me started to ache. And then Matt. A coworker. Friendly. Charming. Funny in a way that made you feel seen. He'd compliment my work presentations, hold doors open, ask how the kids were doing, not in that polite, surface-level way, but like he actually cared. Like I mattered. He noticed things. Like the new haircut Daniel didn't mention. Or the way I bit my lip when I was stressed. At first, it was nothing. Just coffee breaks and harmless texts. But when Matt said, "You deserve someone who actually sees you," I felt something in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. Not love. Just life. It wasn't physical. Not yet. But emotionally. I was already halfway out the door. Daniel didn't notice. Or maybe he did, and just didn't care. He seemed like a man who had already given up. And I was starting to believe he deserved to be left behind. The night of Ben's school play was supposed to be a moment. He had practiced his one line for weeks, over and over again in front of the mirror, wearing his little homemade costume. He even asked me twice that morning, "You think Dad'll be there tonight?" I lied. Of course, baby. He wouldn't miss it. But he did. Daniel texted 10 minutes before the curtains opened, still stuck at work. "I'm sorry. Tell him I'm proud." I stared at that message for a long time. Proud? Proud of what? Missing his son's moment. Again. When we got home, the kids went straight to bed. Ben didn't even ask about his dad. I think he already knew the answer. I waited in the kitchen. I didn't even take off my coat. When Daniel walked in just after 10, setting his keys down like it was any other night, I snapped. "What the hell is wrong with you?" He looked confused. "Tired." "What?" "You missed your son's play." Again. "He was looking for you in the crowd, Daniel. He kept looking for your face." He rubbed his forehead. "I told you, I got stuck, don't," I cut him off. "Don't give me another excuse. That's all you are now, just one excuse after another." He didn't reply. Just stood there, like he was waiting for me to finish. But I didn't stop. I unleashed. "You're a failure, Daniel. As a husband. As a father. You don't show up. You don't talk. You don't even try. You walk around like this half-dead ghost and expect the rest of us to carry you." He stood completely still. Didn't yell. Didn't fight back. "I have begged for scraps of your attention for years. You act like being tired gives you a free pass to be absent." And then I said it. The one line I can't take back: "Sometimes I wish I married someone else. Someone who actually felt like a partner." His face didn't change. But something in his eyes dimmed. He looked at me for a long moment. Then just said, "Okay." That was it. No fight. No slam of the door. Just silence. And a week later, he packed a bag and left. No big speech. No drama. Just one final text: "Tell the kids I'll call. I'm not leaving them. Just giving you what you wanted." The kids didn't understand. Emma cried every night. Ben wouldn't look at me. I told them their dad walked out. That he abandoned us. And I believed it, for a while. But the silence he left behind. It didn't feel like victory. It felt hollow. The new apartment was supposed to be a fresh start. Modern kitchen, big windows, sleek countertops. A place with light. But no matter how many throw pillows I arranged or how many candles I lit, the rooms always felt empty. Not just quiet, empty. The kids hated it. Emma barely said a word when she visited. She sat in the corner with her headphones in, scrolling through her phone. Ben stopped coming altogether. When I texted, he'd respond with one-word answers. If he responded at all. I tried to justify it. They're just adjusting. They'll come around. But deep down, I knew, I'd lost something bigger than a marriage. I'd lost the family we built. And Matt? Well, Matt was still around. Kind of. He'd come over twice a week, bring takeout, make me laugh. But every conversation felt like filler. Every kiss felt like a distraction. He didn't know my kids. Didn't ask about them. Didn't care. I used to ache for connection. For passion. Now I was just trying to feel anything at all. Then one night, I ran into Lisa, Daniel's old coworker, at the grocery store. We chatted awkwardly, pretending we weren't dancing around the elephant in the aisle. But just as I turned to leave, she said, "I'm glad he's doing better. There was a time we didn't think he'd make it." I froze. "What do you mean?" She blinked. "You didn't know." Daniel was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, over a year before the separation. He kept it quiet. Said he didn't want to burden anyone. I just stood there, clutching a bag of frozen peas like it might stop my hands from shaking. He wasn't absent because he didn't care. He wasn't quiet because he didn't love us. He was suffering. And I never saw it. Never asked. I just assumed he stopped trying, so I stopped loving. That night, I sat on my balcony and cried harder than I had in years. Not because he left, but because I finally understood why he did. And suddenly, the man I once called a failure didn't look like a villain anymore. He looked like someone who had been silently drowning, while I stood on shore, shouting at him to swim harder. It happened on a random Tuesday. Emma had forgotten her science project at my apartment, and I offered to drop it off at Daniel's house while she was at school. He wasn't home, just a note on the door that read, "Back by 3. Leave it inside if you've got the spare key." I did. I hadn't stepped into that house in over a year. The furniture had changed. The colors were warmer. The pictures on the wall now showed the kids smiling beside their dad, no gaps, no missing pieces. I lingered longer than I should have. I walked past Emma's room, and I don't know what made me do it, but I went in. Maybe I was just missing her. Or maybe I was still trying to find something I'd lost. That's when I saw it, a folded piece of paper tucked into the corner of her bookshelf. My name wasn't on it, but something about the handwriting made my chest tighten. It was Daniel's. I shouldn't have read it. I know that. But I did. Dear Ben. Dear Emma, I don't know if I'll ever be brave enough to give this to you, but if I am, just know I tried. I really tried. Your mom was right to be angry. I wasn't showing up. I wasn't present. But it wasn't because I didn't love you. I was just broken. I lost my job and didn't tell anyone. I was ashamed. I picked up 2 part-time jobs under the table to make ends meet. I didn't want your mom to think I'd failed her. But the more I hid it, the heavier it got. And then I just shut down. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to ask for help. I know your mom thinks I left. But truthfully, she pushed me over the edge. And I let her. If there's one thing I hope you remember, it's that silence doesn't always mean someone doesn't care. Sometimes it means they're fighting a war inside their head, and they're losing. I couldn't finish the letter. My hands were shaking too hard. He was never the villain I made him out to be. He wasn't ignoring us. He was hiding his pain to protect us, from his failure, from his shame, from the weight of not being enough. And when I hurled those words at him, "You're a failure as a husband and a father," I wasn't giving him feedback. I was confirming his worst fear. I didn't just hurt him. I broke him. At the moment he needed someone to say, "What's wrong?" I chose to say, "You're not good enough." And I never gave him a chance to explain otherwise. I come here sometimes. Not to interfere. Not to talk to Daniel. Just to watch. It sounds pathetic, I know. But when I see my kids, our kids, run to him with open arms, it gives me a strange kind of peace. He's not broken anymore. He's steady. Present. Warm. The kind of father I once accused him of never being. The kind of man I didn't believe he was capable of becoming. And me? I'm still figuring that out. I started therapy last year. Not because I wanted Daniel back, though I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes dream of us laughing in the kitchen again. But that's not why I go. I go because I need to understand how I became someone who could say such cruel things, and believe they were justified. I needed to face the fact that I had weaponized my pain. That I wanted him to hurt the way I was hurting, without ever asking if he was already in pain himself. I haven't forgiven myself yet. But I'm trying. Emma has started texting back. Sometimes with emojis. Ben spent an afternoon with me last month. We built a Lego castle and he actually laughed. It wasn't the same laugh he has with Daniel. But it was something. Rebuilding takes time. Trust doesn't return with just apologies. It comes with silence. With showing up. With staying, even when it's hard. If I had known then what I know now. If I had read that letter before I burned everything down. Would I have stayed? Would I have looked him in the eyes and said, I see you. Even like this, I still see you. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't ready to love a version of him that wasn't strong. Maybe I needed to break first to understand the damage I was capable of doing. But sitting here now, watching him hold Ben's backpack and tie Emma's shoelaces, I know this much: I thought I was the victim of a broken marriage. But I was the judge, jury, and executioner of a man I never truly saw. And now, all I can do is hope my kids never inherit that same blindness. Because the next time someone you love pulls away, ask yourself one question: when someone goes silent, do you attack them? Or do you ask what they're carrying?